I know I don't speak for myself when I say that red pill culture has gone too far. I also know I don't speak for myself when I say that men are under attack in our modern era. But their biggest assailants are not those blue-haired feminists who happen to have warped ideas of human relationships, although they are certainly assailants. Their biggest assailants are those who claim to help them by giving them advice and by encouraging them to take the red pill. Indeed, my friends, the manosphere, which many of you may not be familiar with, is this sort of unofficial consortium of bloggers, talkers, and thinkers, if you can even call them that, on the internet that try to propose new solutions for men in the modern era, who try to wake them up or enlighten them to the supposed horrors of dating culture these days. And, some of the people in this blogosphere are people like the famed Andrew Tate, who has a whole host of problems, but who is known for his very direct and rambunctious and rather materialistic prognosis for many of the problems in modern culture, and other folks who have come and gone. The individual people are not really important. What's important is what's actually going on. And all of these different voices have been feeding men in the West, particularly, very bad ideas about how to present themselves, about how to act, and about how to interact with women. And we understand that the result of bad ideas are bad actions, which leads me to the subject of today's video. I recently came across a video on Twitter that disturbed me to no end, and I will show you what that video is. And this video demonstrates a man attempting to get corrective surgery for his height. Watch this. Now, when I first watched this, I had a flurry of emotions. On one end, I thought, well, how in the world can someone come to a point where they're okay with this kind of stuff, where they're okay with doing this themselves? On the other hand, I thought, there's an entire industry out there that allows people to feed their aesthetic delusions, allows people to feed their idea of themselves, of their future self, and as opposed to encouraging them to undergo self-refinement, undergo self-betterment, and do things that humans have done for thousands upon thousands of years, and the result of that has resulted in civilization. Instead of doing that, they have offered them this refinement on a silver platter. I thought many, many things. But then I also thought to myself, what context does this man who decided to undergo this surgery exist in? He exists in a world where self-love is presented as uncritical self-acceptance, which ultimately leads to destruction. He lives in a world where if you actually want to better yourself by paying attention to interpersonal values and paying attention to things that transcend the material and have to do with the spiritual, you are denigrated and you're attacked with a wide variety of colorful adjectives. If you are, for example, someone who's a little bit overweight and you decide to go ahead and lose weight and you post about that, you are called fat-phobic. Because self-love, according to that frame of mind, has to be about accepting who you are, how you are, without any refinement, without any betterment, because if you don't accept how you are right now, you hate yourself. So self-love. He lives in a culture where self-love is opaque and not very clear. He lives in a culture where this false idea of self-love has led so many people to actually reject the kind of care and the kind of improvement they need to continue as a human being. Human beings, by our very nature, are living organisms, and living organisms can only live and live well if they keep growing. But in this culture of stasis, where the individual no longer matters, but these various different social ideas and categories and microaggressions and other sort of ideas that have been put into the social soup. They matter more, and so people forget to and don't realize they need to pursue their own self-betterment, and they instead pursue these ideas. He lives in a culture where that is paramount. He lives in a culture where the forces of materialism and cynicism and pessimism have overtaken almost every pillar of social interaction. He lives in a culture where men are almost universally degraded as being toxically masculine for doing behaviors and undertaking tasks that at one point in time would have been considered virtuous. At the same time, where women are also seen as this sort of godlike status that cannot be criticized or cannot even be broached in a certain way without one being misogynistic. He lives in a culture where image matters more than reality. He lives in a culture of the social media era where clicks and aesthetics and tastes are held to be paramount, and virtue and ethics is completely forgotten and not even talked about. I talked about the manosphere earlier. There are plenty of people in the manosphere who have tried to encourage men to better themselves in a way, in their own way, by saying, women want a man who is a high-value man. You may hear the word, a high-value man. Women want a high-value man. Women want a man who is rich, who has certain kinds of physical attributes, who have a certain kind of charisma, and they want that. And if you do not fit this archetype, this category of the high-value man, you will not get a woman. This has created an entire generation of men, of feeble minds, who sit on the internet, the dark reaches of it, and who go on messaging boards and who talk about how much they hate women and talk about how unlucky they are as men, and they drown in their own refusal to obtain greatness. I'm talking about the incels. The most prominent of which was Elliot Rodger, who killed a bunch of people because he felt entitled to have a woman, and he felt that men who were more masculine or more fit or more buff had a bigger advantage than him. So as opposed to bettering themselves, he blamed his problem on the image, like I said before, and pursued the image, and in doing so, destroyed a lot of people. The manosphere doesn't actually offer anything of substance to someone looking to better themselves. Absent of all these conditions that I just explained to all of you, why in the world would a man want to artificially inflate his height, subject himself to a wide range of physiological and biological complications, including pain and including arthritis, a bunch of things that come with this kind of surgery? Why do they want to do that? And for those of you who may say, well, Christian, this is just an isolated incident, obviously it's not. An article here from NBC News says, leg lengthening surgery is gaining popularity among men seeking to be taller, doctors say. This article came from April 23rd, 2023. That, as the posting of the video, was not that long ago. Because the cause of all of this is very simple. Society these days tends to value materialism more than they do other things that actually matter. Which is why Andrew Tate always tells men, make more money, earn more money, have more cars, have more houses. And he expects that, the sort of hedonistic pursuit of materialism and wealth, that to be enough. But that's not enough. A relationship is not merely a transaction of goods. It is a transaction of the heart. And the heart is not subject to the same rules the material economy is. The heart is not subject to the same considerations that you're going to have when you go to the grocery store. The heart is a special phenomenon within itself, and the only way to understand the heart is by understanding who you are, what you want, and how to achieve that in a way that is consistent with your values. But if you don't value anything but wealth, but money, but materialism, but looks, but stature, but social status, if you don't value anything but those things, you will never know yourself. And you will always chase an image that may not be obtainable. Hence why men 5'5", 5'6" are lengthening their height or trying to. The thing about that is that reality is resolute. Nature is often resolute as well. Unlike what the transhumanists say, you cannot edit your way out of your existence. Your existence is final. I don't think it's unfortunate, actually quite fortunate. It's final. There are things you can do to improve yourself within the limits of existence. But if you try to defy those limits, you will always meet pushback, and that pushback will be injurious to your person. Now, considering all these cultural attitudes, considering all these different talking heads who have all these ideas about how men should be, how women should be, all these different archetypes and then things of that sort, I think I should urge all of you to do something that's very simple. As opposed to looking at culture and looking at these dating coaches and all these people who proclaim to have the solution to the lack of love in the modern age, who proclaim to have the solution to cracking the minds of modern women, as they would so call it today, who the women on the whatever podcast or whatever, instead of listening to all these people, it is always important, again, to listen to yourself and pursue your highest standard of value. But to do that, you must have a highest standard of value. And if validation from other people, as ancient as that phenomenon is your higher standard of value, then forget about having a woman. You don't even have yourself. If you don't have yourself, how can you expect to have someone else? What do you give them if you don't have yourself? What do you give them? You can't give them anything. You can't give them anything. No amount of money is going to be able to substitute for what a relationship needs to be fulfilling. This is not just a romantic relationship. This is a friendship as well. A familiar relationship. Anything. But especially in the romantic context, you can't do that. Men who are shorter have been getting married and having beautiful families for years. Danny DeVito, for example. Plenty of men. Plenty. I can name so many examples. But when the emphasis becomes on cultural opinion and the image as opposed to the substance, you forget all of that. You forget yourself. You forget your own values. You listen to all these different people who are filling your minds with nonsense, and you pursue that path. Okay, if I want to be a high-value man, I have to go ahead and get a nice Bentley. I have to go ahead and look taller. I have to go ahead and go to the gym and get buffer. Nothing wrong with having a Bentley. Nothing wrong with going to the gym, by the way. Nothing wrong. But you have to do these things. Every action has an end. Every action is undertaken for some good. This is what Aristotle said so many years ago. He was correct about that. Every action is undertaken for some good. What good is your action oriented to? Is your action oriented towards what you think will obtain the vain validation of people you want to court? If it is oriented towards that, you've lost the game before you even started the first level. Or is your action oriented towards self-improvement on your terms? If it's oriented that on your terms, then we can have a conversation. You are setting yourself on a path of fruitfulness, of a bountiful, perhaps, result. That can only happen when you stop listening to the TikTokers, when you stop listening to people presenting this image of what modern women want or whatever. All of this stuff that I see on social media is absolutely nonsense. Because I don't know what all women want. I don't know what all men want. And to be honest, being me, I don't really deal with a lot of this manosphere stuff. I see its effects all the time. I have male friends who tell me, well, Christian, I thought I was listening to Andrew Tate and I'm like, God, I'm not good enough for a woman. I'm like, what? And it's all presented under the guise of benevolence and self-love, but it's not. I don't see any difference between the manosphere and the fat positivity movement. Both of them try to sell you this image of yourself that is not true. Both of them emphasize ideas that are ultimately injurious to your long-term health. And both of them have no idea of what self-love is. I said it. You are not loving yourself. by putting yourself in proximity to diabetes and heart disease and all manner of diseases that come with being overweight. You were also not loving yourself by going to the gym to please a woman or please a man. Self-love is the foundation of society. But a foolish self-love is the initiator of man's destruction. Understand the difference. Stop listening to these people. Actually appreciate what you have in your own skin. Resist culture, and you will attract exactly what those actions bring forth. If you guys love what I just said or love my message, be sure to go like this video, comment on this video, share this video, subscribe to this channel, donate to my Patreon or my Locals, christianwatson.locals.com, Patreon, official cwatson@gmail.com, or that's my PayPal or whatever. Just it's all in the comment section down below. This is really just a stream of consciousness video because I want people to understand that this is not something that you really need. This is really simple, guys. But culture is just misleading us. Anyway, I love you guys so much, and please stay pensive. Bye, guys.